Hello, this is the Mushroom Wizard, and I'm returning again with another presentation regarding the mushrooms of Saskatchewan and the ways in which we go about identifying those mushrooms for the purpose of picking them. So, today we're going to be looking at the second presentation regarding mushrooms that are often picked by mistake and that are toxic to consume. So this is Malevolent mushrooms of Saskatchewan. And make sure you pay attention because this is even more important than the edible ones. So the genre that we will be looking at today will be Conecaps, Cudonia, Hypholoma, Hypholoma, Mycena, and Tricholoma. And what should you expect from this presentation? Well, this presentation is basically one step up from the last presentation, which was toxic toadstools of Saskatchewan. These ones are dangerously poisonous mushrooms that are often eaten by accident. And these are also mushrooms that have the potential to be fatal. That doesn't mean you're going to find cases of them being fatal. Some of these mushrooms are very small, but if you were to eat enough of them, it would be very bad for you. So the first species or group of species that we're going to be looking at are the Conecaps. These are Conecaps species. As I did with the fiber caps, I'm looking at two species that I think will best represent this group of very common grass and lawn mushrooms that is found in Saskatchewan here. There are far more species than this around. Most of them, if not all of them, have the same toxic potentiality. These are very small species. On the left-hand side, we have Conecaps tenera. On the right-hand side, we have Conecaps apala. These are species that are often consumed when people are looking for hallucinogenic magic mushrooms. And if you eat enough of them, they can kill you. So the cap is cream with a tan center. That is C. apala. Or rust-colored, turning pale beige, often becoming two-toned in the process. And that is a state of being we call hygrophanous. We'll get more into that later with the more advanced species of agarics. So these are conical mushrooms. So they resemble kind of like that pointed upside down ice cream cone. But then they expand outwards, though they never do become fully flat. They always have that umbo in the middle sticking upwards. They are very thin fleshed. They have a deeply striate margin. When I say striate, if you look at the perimeter of that mushroom, you can see those lines going upwards, almost like it's resembling the gills. So that's striation there. And they become split as it goes further upwards, often splitting along those grooves. These only grow up to about 1 inch in diameter. Here you can see those caps kind of more close up here on the left-hand side. You see that two-toned appearance, and that will vary in terms of how moist or dry it is. Here's a size reference for you. Anybody familiar with magic mushrooms knows that picking for the first time, this can be very easily confused for those. Not that I'm promoting you do that. It is illegal in this province, but there are dangers coming with doing that you should be aware of regardless. So the gills are tan, becoming reddish brown with age. They are adnexed, so that means that they kind of dip inwards towards the stipe, as opposed to just going across and meeting the stipe. They are crowded together. There are short gills between those long gills. 1 to 2 between each. It has a red-brown spore print. And that should be the same for both of those species. And here we have just what a Conecap spore print would look like, though it would be actually quite small. Remember, it's only 1 inch across. So the stipe is off-white in color for C. apala, rust-brown for C. tenera. They are cylindrical, very much so, or bulbous. Sometimes they'll have a little ball at the bottom of that stipe. They are actually hollow. So think of a very small dandelion, how that would look if it was the same color as you're seeing here. They grow up to about 3 inches high, so much taller than it is wide. You can see them shooting up there. And you can see different states of moisture, right? I would guess that the one on the far right is drier than the one in the background there. These are saprobic. They are terrestrial. They grow on your lawns. They grow in meadows, other grassy areas. They are scattered to gregarious. Sometimes you find a whole bunch of them, and they're found summer through fall. These are dangerous. They contain amatoxins. These are the same toxins that you find in the death cap. Only difference is this is really, really small, this mushroom. So you would have to consume quite a few of these to get that sort of effect. So fatal in sufficient quantities, but it would be very difficult enough for you to find enough to do so. However, you can still do some significant liver and kidney damage to yourself by being a goof and misidentifying one mushroom for another. Next mushroom. This one is the Sulfur Tuft, Hypholoma fasciculare. It has quite a reputation. Not a fun mushroom to eat. So this is a very common mushroom, I will say too, in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, any sort of city park where there's a dead tree. These are variable in color. For the cap, it ranges from reddish brown to light yellow to olive to orange. It usually has a darker red center, but sometimes it'll have this olive tint to it. These are convex or campanulate. Campanulate is like that bell shape, if you recall. And they become nearly flat with age. They flatten out with those margins turning up there. But at times they will retain a bit of an umbo there. You can see that happening in the right-hand sides. Those two mushrooms have that bit of an umbo sticking up still as it's beginning to flatten. The surface is smooth, the margin is smooth or appendiculate. When I say appendiculate, I mean it will have those veil fragments hanging down. These grow up to about 3 inches in diameter. Here's a size reference for you. The gills are yellow, becoming greenish yellow, and then developing this kind of spotted purplish sort of appearance at maturity. They are adnate. That means that the gills just run and touch the stipe. They are very crowded. There are frequent short gills. They're all smashed together. This is covered with a courtner when young, and it has a purple-brown spore print. Now, one thing that will always be a giveaway for this mushroom here is that green that you see in that stipe there, that sort of olive green hue. There are very few mushrooms that have a green hue to their gills, and all of the ones I know of are toxic. So that's a trait to remember, and that's what the spore print will look like. It's got kind of like a brown, purplish sort of cross there. The stipe is yellow, turning rusty brown from the base upwards as it ages. Cylindrical, so they'll all be the same width from apex to the base. It has the sign of fibrillose scaling, and that's kind of almost like a hairy sort of fiber sticking off of it. And as well, it's fibrous, so you can kind of see that longitudinal fibrous nature there. Many stipes will often clump together at the base, and it's up to about 4 inches high and a half-inch thick. That's what it'll look like. These are often mistaken for honey mushrooms, for enoki or velvet foot is another name for that one. But you don't want to accidentally pick this. We'll get to that in a second. These are saprobic. They grow directly upon decaying wood. Keep in mind that wood may be buried. So you may be like, wow, it's definitely not the sulfur tuft because it's growing out of the ground. But if you give it a bit of a lift to see what they're attached to, you'll see it's just buried wood. These are preferential to conifers. So they will be very common in Saskatchewan. They are clumping together in large clusters. You can see that happening here. And they are found early spring and early fall. So you will find them throughout some spring to fall here because we have shorter seasons, and our springs and our falls tend to have a lot more cooler weather. So you will even see them in summer, unless it's really, really dry out. So when we say cool, weather, we're talking cool weather, usually for the Pacific Northwest or much of the United States, which to us is normal weather. The toxicity is potentially lethal. These contain steroids, two steroids called fasciculare E and fasciculare F. The symptoms take up to 10 hours to begin, so often people don't know what's going on because they ate these mushrooms the day before and they don't realize, now they're getting sick. And that's very problematic because these symptoms include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, paralysis, impaired vision, liver and kidney damage. Right? So if you want to put that into comparison here, how does this kill people? Well, since these last up to 2 days, if you are paralyzed and blind and vomiting, and nobody else is around, right? That's a very prone position to suddenly find yourself in, especially for 2 days. So that has killed people in the past, especially with, all that dehydration and then liver and kidney damage on top of it. The next mushroom we're going to look at is the Leopard Knight, Tricholoma pardinum. So the Leopard Knight has a dark gray-brown cap when young, becoming light gray with dark gray scaling over the top. It is darkest at the center. It is convex. It flattens with age. It develops a dense layer of raised scales and fibrils. When I say fibrils, I mean like the scales feel almost like hair or fibers, if you can imagine that. The margin is downturned at first, and as it ages, it becomes wavy. You can see that happening in this photo, and it grows up to about 6 inches in diameter. So it is a fairly large mushroom. Here you can see a size reference with those fingers, but as you saw from the description of 6 inches, it can go bigger than that. This mushroom is primarily going to be mistaken for the knights that are found in Saskatchewan, the night mushrooms, and there will be a presentation on that later on. So these gills are off-white to gray in color. They are sinuate. What sinuate means is there is often it's really hard to show that in a photo, but you see it goes down almost like it's free and there's nothing, and then suddenly the gills start up again and touch the stipe, and it creates this kind of channel that's really hard to show in a photo. The gills are crowded together. There are short gills that are present, not super numerous, but they are there, and there is a white spore print, which is going to always happen with the Tricholoma genus. The stipe is off-white, bruising brown. It is clavate. You can see that clearly there. And that clavate just means it's kind of like shaped like a club, with thickest at the bottom, thinnest at the top, and kind of this sort of crescendo towards it. Central to eccentric attachment to the cap. Sometimes it will be off center, and it is fibrillose. You could peel it apart, and it's up to about 4 inches high and 1 inch thick. So these are mycorrhizal with conifers. They are terrestrial. They are solitary to gregarious, and they are found in the fall. These are dangerous to eat. They contain an unknown mycotoxin. These do cause severe and prolonged gastrointestinal distress, as well as dehydration. And the combination of the two, if you're not in very good health, can be a dangerous situation for you, for sure. This next one here is the Livid Pinkgill, Hypholoma sinuatum. Another notorious mushroom. So that cap is off-white to gray to ivory. It's often lighter at the center, and then it's got this streaked appearance with the lighter and the darker kind of streaking together. It is convex to campanulate. That is very broadly campanulate there, but you get the sort of bell shape I'm talking about. And it becomes nearly flat with age while retaining that umbo. So we would call that umbilicate. It is smooth to touch. The margin is lobed. You can see that lobing there, becoming split as the cap expands. And it's up to about 5 inches in diameter. If you look at the one in the middle, you can see that splitting beginning to occur in that cap, which is opened up there. Here's a size reference for you. The gills are cream and they become pink with age. It is sinuate. Again, it has that sort of channel around the stipe there. The gills are crowded together. There are frequent short gills, quite a few. You see in that one on the right-hand side, sort of right to the center there, you can see about 4 or 5 different lengths of short gills between the 2 regular gills. And it has a pink spore print. And there you can see the spore print very clearly. The stipe is off-white in color. It is clavate to bulbous. We're looking at a bulbous one here. It's pretty much the same width throughout, and then at the end there's a big ball. It has a central attachment to the cap, and it's up to 4 inches high and about a ½ inch thick. There you go. These have an unknown ecology. Likely they're saprobic. They could be mycorrhizal. It just hasn't been determined yet. It is terrestrial. It grows on the ground. These are solitary to scattered. They are found summer through the fall. They are dangerous. Once again, an unknown mycotoxin is causing severe gastrointestinal distress, but this one goes further. This one causes headaches, delirium, liver damage, as well as, in some cases, a severe prolonged depression that lasts up to 6 months, and it can occasionally lead to death. Also, depression, if you're familiar with it, can also lead to death. So we're talking like a chemically induced change to your brain. So that's not something to toy with. The next one we'll be looking at is the Lilac Bonnet Mycena pura. This one has a tendency to be confused with some of the deceivers that we looked at in the deceiver presentation. So this is pink to purple, fading with age, convex, flattening out with a small umbo, smooth. The margin is striate, as you can see there. It's got this kind of multicolored hygrossinous look. It's up to about 2 inches in diameter. It's actually a very pretty mushroom. And here's a size reference for you. The gills are white to pale pink in color. These are adnexed to sinuate, distant. The short gills are very frequent and it has a white spore print. These are pale pink to pale purple in color with the stipe there. Cylindrical, has a central attachment to the cap. These stipes are hollow and they are up to about 4 inches high and a ½ inch wide at their biggest. These are saprobic mushrooms. They are terrestrial. They grow off of conifer duff. So when I say duff, I mean basically like little sticks and decaying pine needles. And they are found in boggy areas. They are also said to be bioluminescent, but I haven't found much information on that. And this is the only picture that I've seen that even suggests this. So is that true? Maybe, hopefully. These are solitary to scattered, found spring through fall. Their toxicity is moderate. It's not as dangerous perhaps as some of the others. They have a strong radish-like taste and odor. Now, one of the reasons that I consider this to be dangerous, even though I say it's moderate, is because it's very rare that you'll get sick enough to really hurt yourself with these, but muscarine in enough of a quantity can kill you. So we're just going to call that between moderate and dangerous there. And muscarine causes sweating, vomiting, diarrhea, excessive salivation, cramping, dehydration. And one thing I forgot to put there, and this is what can often kill people, is heart palpitations, as well as breathing, shortness of breath. And in people with any sort of heart condition or asthma, that can actually be fatal. Large quantities of muscarine can be fatal, which I just said. So we'll just move on. Such a beautiful mushroom. Thought I'd throw one more photo in there. This is the last one we're going to look at. This is a bit of an oddball. This one is closely related to the jelly babies that you will see in the oddball section. This is the red leg jelly baby. It's also closely related to morels. This is Cudonia circinans. It has an asci, not a cap, and that asci is cream in color, tanning with age. It is lobed and eccentric, as you can see there. Smooth, it is dry and cartilaginous. They are uneven if you run your finger on it. The margin is enrolled deeply. These are up to about 1 inch in diameter, so a very small mushroom, as you can see there. 1 inch would be quite a large one. Very generous. The stipe is cream, quickly taking on reddish hues. It becomes dark violet red with age. It is bulbous. You can see that ball at the end there. These have a central or eccentric attachment to the asci. It is longitudinally ridged going up that stipe. It grows up to about 2 inches in height. These are saprobic. They grow on conifer duff. Again, you can see that decaying pine needles there, or directly upon decaying softwood. So one or the other. Well, you can see them. I guess when I say softwood, I should just say conifers. Preferential to spruce over pine. So if it has a choice, but you can still find these in pine. They are scattered to gregarious, and they are found summer through fall. These are dangerously toxic. They do contain gyromitrin in large quantities. That is the same thing we see in the deadly false morel. These can cause nausea, cramping, vomiting, jaundice, and if you were to eat a large quantity of this for some reason, you would potentially die due to the damage to your blood cells. Okay, so that is it for this one. There will be several more of these presentations as we progress towards more dangerous mushrooms. And you must be thinking, are there more dangerous than this? Well, absolutely, there are. We still have 3 or 4 of these to go. So, this is the Mushroom Wizard. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and took this one seriously, especially this one. I will see you next time with the next presentation. Thank you.